let's talk about something we all deal with, our paychecks, and where all that money goes. Today, we're going to trace the fascinating journey of that money and uncover the hidden economic rules that change what we buy whenever our income changes. So let's just dive right in with a quick question. Picture this. You get a 10% raise at work. Awesome, right? After you do your little happy dance, what's the very first thing you upgrade in your life? A better car, fancier restaurants, that new phone you've been eyeing? Whatever your answer is, hold on to that thought because it actually reveals a really core idea in economics.
I mean, it just makes sense, doesn't it? Our spending habits change. Before that raise, life might look a lot like the column on the left. But with a bit more cash flow, that list on the right starts to look a whole lot more realistic. You start swapping out instant noodles for meals out, or you finally ditch the bus pass and start looking for a car. And that exact shift, well, that's what economists get really excited about measuring.
So how do they measure it? How do you put a hard number on that feeling of finally upgrading your lifestyle? Well, that brings us to the main event for today, a concept called income elasticity of demand. I know, it sounds super technical, but stick with me, because it's actually a surprisingly simple and powerful idea.
Okay, so here's the official textbook definition. But all it's really saying is this. It's a way to measure how much your desire for something, let's say a new TV, changes when your income goes up or down. Does your demand change just a little bit, or does it change a whole lot? That's the one question this thing answers. And here's probably the best way to think about it. Imagine a rubber band. For some things you buy, a small change in your income makes your demand for it stretch like crazy. For other things, it hardly moves at all. That stretchiness is exactly what elasticity is all about.
And the math behind it? Honestly, it's way simpler than it sounds. You just take the percentage change in how much of a thing you buy, and you divide it by the percentage change in your income. That's literally it. One simple division gives us one really important number.
So we do that little calculation and we get a number. Now what? Well, this is where it gets cool. Based on what that number is, we can sort pretty much everything in your shopping cart into one of three distinct categories. Let's break them down. First up, what if our elasticity number, we'll just call it E, is greater than 1? Well, that means the demand for that item stretched more than your income did. So maybe a 10% raise leads to a 20 or even 30% jump in how much of it you buy.
We have a name for these, luxury goods. These are the things we really splurge on when we have more money. Our demand for them grows way faster than our income does. Think sports cars, designer clothes, high-end electronics. You get the idea.
So, for instance, let's say your income goes up by 10%, and that makes you feel like you can finally get that huge new TV. So your demand for one shoots up by 20%. You just do the math. 20 divided by 10 gives you an elasticity of 2. And since 2 is greater than 1, that TV is officially a luxury good. Okay, next scenario. What if the number we get is positive, but it's small? Somewhere between 0 and 1. This means your demand for the product still goes up when you get more money, but it doesn't jump through the roof. It stretches a little, just not as much as your income did. This brings us to our second category, necessity goods. These are the things you pretty much have to buy, like basic food items. When you get a raise, you might buy a little bit more, or maybe a slightly better version, but you're probably not going to, say, double the amount of bread you eat. Your demand for it is pretty stable. Let's use wheat as an example. A 10% boost in your income might only lead to a 5% increase in your demand for wheat products. So, we do the math again. 5 divided by 10 is 0.5. Since that's between 0 and 1, wheat is a classic necessity. And now, for what I think is the most interesting one. What happens if the elasticity number is less than 0? What could a negative number possibly mean? Well, it means that when your income goes up, your demand for that product actually goes down.
These are called inferior goods. And I know that word inferior sounds a little harsh, right? But in economics, it doesn't mean the product is bad or low quality. It's just a term for things that you happily replace with better alternatives as soon as you can afford them. You actually buy less of them as you get richer.
To see this in action, let's take bajra, which is a type of millet. If a household's income goes up by, say, 5%, they might be able to afford other grains they prefer, like rice or quinoa. So their demand for bajra actually falls by 2%. That gives us a negative elasticity of negative 0.4, making it a perfect example of an inferior good.
Okay, so that's the theory. But let's put this to the test. Let's see how all this stuff plays out in a real-world scenario, like at a local car dealership when the economy is doing well. So here's the setup. The economy is humming, people are feeling good, and on average, customer incomes in this town are up by a solid 10%. Now, this dealership sells two things: brand new cars right off the truck and pre-owned used cars. What do you think happens to their sales numbers?
And there it is, a perfect illustration. For new cars, that 10% rise in income causes a huge 25% jump in sales. The elasticity is plus 2.5, which is way bigger than 1. For this market, a new car is absolutely a luxury good. People have more money, and they rush out to buy one.
But now, look at the incredible contrast with used cars. That very same 10% income boost made used car sales drop by almost 4%. The elasticity is negative. Why? Because a bunch of people who were driving used cars could suddenly afford a new one, so they made the switch. This makes used cars, in this context, a textbook inferior good.
So we've gone through the definitions, we've seen it in action, but why does this really matter outside of a classroom? Why would a business owner, like our car dealer, care so deeply about this one little number? Well, the answer is, it's absolutely critical for planning and, frankly, for survival.
Seriously, businesses use this elasticity number for pretty much everything. It helps them predict what their sales will look like next year. It tells them just how badly an economic recession might hurt them. If you're selling luxury goods, you know a downturn is going to be painful. If you sell necessities, you'll be much safer. This single number shapes their entire strategy.
This quote right here sums it all up perfectly. If your product's elasticity is greater than 1, your sales are cyclical. They ride the roller coaster of the economy, up and down. But if your number is negative, your sales are counter-cyclical. You might actually do better during a recession because people are switching down to your more affordable product.
So let's end with this. Now that you have this new lens to see the world through, start looking around. Think about the brands and products you use every day. Based on whether they're a luxury, a necessity, or an inferior good, which companies do you think are built for the good times, the economic booms? And which ones are maybe, just maybe, secretly built to thrive when things get tough? The answer is all in the elasticity.